Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of Ham Nation is brought to you by DX Engineering. DX Engineering offers practically everything you need to outfit your shack, plus the fastest shipping in the industry. Most in-stock items ship the same day, Monday through Friday until 10 p.m. Eastern. For more information, visit dxengineering.com/hamnation. By Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Introducing Rate Shield Approval. If you're in the market to buy a home, Rate Shield Approval locks up your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. It's a real game changer. Learn more and get started at rocketmortgage.com/hamnation. And by ICOM. For more information, visit icomamerica.com/hamnation.
This is Ham Nation, episode number 370 for October 3rd, 2018. Charlie Wooten, broadcast engineer on hurricane recovery.
Hello, everybody. It's Bob Heil. I'm here. Really am. I've been gone so long, sometimes I have to check. We're in the plant here at Heil Sound. I was all set up. I did a really fun club this afternoon in England. What a fabulous club that was, and so we just figured we'd leave all this set up for Ham Nation tonight. So here we are. But we have some really good things going on tonight. We have the Engineer of the Year, I call him. I mean, how many years? I don't know. He's had it. He'll tell you about it. But Charlie, how are you doing, man? It's really nice to see you. Charlie Wooten.
Hello, Bob. That was 2005.
Wow.
It's been that long.
Yeah. Well, we know that just because you get it one year doesn't mean you forgot everything, because you're the guy. And George, you brought him on tonight. You're getting him to stand by when you go out in the mud fields, or what? Good to see you.
Yeah, I think he knows all about operating in the mud, and just had some recent experience with that. So, yeah, I wanted to get Charlie in here. Actually, back around the time of Hurricane Florence, but you were kind of busy back then, I think, Charlie. So I'm glad we finally were able to catch up with you tonight.
Yeah, I was going to try to do it earlier, but this is the first time I've been available.
It's really nice to have you. Looking forward to hearing your session with George. And we have rainy Southern California. Really, it's raining. What are you doing, Gordo? How'd you get that rain?
It was quite amazing, and we'll call it rain-et because we might get 1/10 of an inch max, but we'll see. Well, next week, we're going to talk about something that drew more comments from our readers, and that is all of these comments about the Chinese orphan radios and what the FCC is doing and how that could impact on ham radio operation. But I'm happy to report, from all I understand, it's going to impact very positively, so we don't have a restaurant just down the street here in Costa Mesa coming up on 446 ham band that was in Channel 1 on a radio times 50 that was imported and sold through a local dealer on the East Coast. And also, if ever you're faced with programming a handheld and you don't know exactly what keystrokes to do, KF7 Charlie has this great book, and it is solid with over, I think, 65 different handhelds, and it gives you all the inside scoop on how to program them. So look up Kilo Fox 7 Charlie, and that is Andrew Cornwall. He does a great job with this brand new book that he self-publishes and is available. So go to his website or go to his QRZ address and then get all the info. Bob, back to you.
Okay, that's great. Hello to everybody in the chat room. I'll get in there in a little bit. Always glad to have the chat room here. We get a lot of information from you. I have a couple of things here before I jump into the Duke City thing. I'm really saddened by this, but we lost one of our great hams this week. That is Peggy Sue. Yes.
Oh, boy.
Peggy Sue. K5PSG. Peggy Sue Garon, I guess you pronounce it. Peggy she's been in ham radio for a number of years. And, back in 2004, 5, she worked several of the events, and she's no longer with us. And she was, to many, she was the girlfriend of Buddy Holly. No, that's wrong. She was the girlfriend of Mr. Allison, the drummer. But she remained very, very good friends with Buddy when they all broke up and so on. But anyway, we lost Peggy Sue, and that's a shame because she was a great gal. Well, I was at the wonderful Albuquerque Hamfest last week before, and I got to tell you, these guys really do it. If you get a chance next year, do not miss the Duke City Hamfest on the high desert. They really have a great Hamfest there. One of the things that I was interested in is they gave away one of our brand new parametric receive audio systems. That was a grand prize, Old Ralph, W5EEI. It was really cool. He hung around the booth for all day, and we had a good time with him, but he won it. Look at there, Gordo. There's your buddy. He's a light man.
Yeah, the wired man. You bet. He and Kimmer's the best.
They are the best. And he always brings along with him stuff like this. Really cool things. 45 RPM record player and RCA, and you don't find that anymore, but he has them. One of my good friends. This is what Hamfests are about to me. We talk on the air so much on 160 meters, and there he is, KD0ZD. We're just really, really great to get to meet all these guys, and he was really great hauling me around to the airport and so on. There's another one. I worked Wayne, back in 1957, 58. And golly, here we meet up again. How about that? And that's his wife. Both of them are VHF characters, and good to see them. Here's some serious stuff, guys. We talk about Heathkit. Well, this is the new Heathkit. No, it's not Heathkit. Brian has put together this great company called DZ. If you haven't seen anything about it, you need to do it. Brian has some wonderful kits and really high tech. And so look up DZ. It's amazing, some of the things that he's doing. We got to get him on the show one of these days and let him know. And of course, you know who was there. Ray was there. We had a good time with Ray. And I met one of my wonderful friends. He grew up in St. Louis. His father worked for McDonnell, then it was Boeing, and so did he. Without a doubt, he is the absolute best home brewer I have ever met. This is a That's a homebrew transceiver that he built. And guess what? It's using octal tubes. I love it. But he builds some wonderful things. Go check out his site. He is something very, very cool. So you want to go do that. KG7TR. KG7TR. Write that down and go visit his site. You will not believe some of the things that you see from him. He's just, Mike is something else. He's really great. Does all kinds of stuff. And, of course, we had a little session there with our parametric receive audio system. So that's what we did in Albuquerque. It was held at a wonderful, beautiful Indian reservation and resort and all that. It's really great. So you want to go check it out, because Duke City Hamfest is something special. Last week we were in Milwaukee, and I think Dan has a really cool video of that. So let's play up and see what we got here on Superfest in Milwaukee.
HRO Superfest 2018 was held September 28th and 29th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The event was very busy. They even had off-site parking and a free shuttle bus to get you to the store. Once inside HRO, the store part itself was very busy, with all kinds of demos. In a demo area, they'll let you try out just about every radio that they had in the store. And the salespeople at HRO were extremely busy. For them, this was the day to put on the tennis shoes. The event itself was held in the back of the store. And as you entered the back of the store, one of the first things you saw was Bob Heil's parametric receive system, which included a parametric equalizer and speaker. Also making the trip was the Pine Board project, ready for use on 3 bands. Not too far from where Bob was located was a huge ICOM display, which featured the IC7610, the IC7300, the ICR8600, and the IC5100 D-Star radio. ICOM also had their communications van with a radio waves HF antenna attached to it. Speaking of radio waves, they had a pretty nice booth inside as well. Yaesu also had a very large display, showing off the DX9000, the DX5000, the 991A, as well as the 450. They also had a pretty good display of the System Fusion radios. In between ICOM and Yaesu was West Mountain Radio, with their wide selection of power distribution. They even had a forum to do power handling on mobile operation. The American Radio Relay League was also there. Bob Innerbitson, NQ1R, was kept very busy. And Kermit Carlson, W9XA, Central Division Director, and Pat Moretti, KA1BR, Wisconsin Section Manager, answered a lot of questions about ARRL. MFJ had a nice display, showing all their ham radio accessories, as well as amplifiers and antennas. We stopped by Comet Antenna to take a look at all their cool mobile and base antennas. Ham Radio Deluxe had a very cool display. At one of the screens, you could actually talk to somebody in technical support about questions that you might have about the software. They were coming in via Skype. Larson had a very cool display, showing off all our neat mobile antennas that they have. And if you need coaxial cable, Cable Experts can get you the cable that you need. Or the other alternative was ABR Industries. They make coaxial cable as well. And if you need a battery, BioEnno was there, with their BioEnno power. They also had some pretty good solar panels. And then TimeWave was there as well, with all their neat TNCs. Very cool if you want to set up an APRS node. And let's not forget Gold Medal Ideas. They make a lot of specialty ham radio shirts, as well as custom-made hats and badges. And if anybody's been through Milwaukee, you realize that there's a lot of amateur radio clubs in Milwaukee. I stopped by the Milwaukee Amateur Radio Club booth and got a quick peek in what their trailer is like. Talk about a setup. Multiple VHF and UHF radios, as well as HF. Not to be outdone, the Racine Aries group had their trailer there as well. They also had VHF, UHF, and HF in the trailer. The American Red Cross had a very good booth as well as the Salvation Army. The West Dallas Amateur Radio Club was promoting the Wisconsin QSO Party in March 2019. And the Wisconsin Amateur Radio Club, their booth was very well manned. The Milwaukee Repeater Club runs the 14691 repeater system. With its multiple receive sites, it's got coverage pretty much everywhere in southeastern Wisconsin. The Waukesha County Radio Amateurs Club runs a nice little repeater system. And let's us not forget the Boy Scouts, who were selling sodas and brats. This event was a nice little fundraiser for them. And that's it from HRO's Superfest 2018. I hope to see you here next year. 73 from N9 LVS.
Well, it was really good to see Dan too. We've known each other for many years, and we don't get to see as much. I used to do the Superfest for many years when it was AES, and I was kind of one of the guys that started that whole thing when Terry Sturman started the store. So we'd get up there often. So it's good to see you, Dan, and nice work you do. That's for sure. He was having a good time. One of the things that I wanted to mention before we move on down the line, and it's very important. Now pay attention, everybody. one of our lovelies, Miss Valerie, she is running for the Central Division Director, Illinois. Now, catch that on, all you Illinois people, ARRL members, you got to get up and vote for her. We want to see her become our Central Division Director because she will get things done, I can guarantee you. So I'm really excited and proud of Valerie, and we'll be giving you more reports. She'll be on next week, and we'll get a report from her. And she's doing great, man. We had a good time. Her and Sherry were there, and so on. But sorry that we didn't have her on tonight. They had it set up, but they had some microphone problems with the folks they were going to talk to down in Puerto Rico. She'll be here next week, though. But, yeah, she's doing great, looks great, just out kicking tires because she's going to win that Central Division if all of us get with the program. And if you don't belong to the ARRL, I'm going to ask you one question. Why not? They do a lot for us. It's really changed up there. It's not the same as we've had for decades. We got new regime, and they're really doing some great things. So if we get people like Valerie to come along with all of the Newington leaders, we got a real thing happening. So check it out. Central Division Director for Miss Valerie. So let's get the old votes happening and go from there. I am going to have to get out here early because I've been here since the afternoon with the club meeting. So let's continue on, though. Got some great things coming. Charlie, I wish you the best in all you do out there. But first, let's go see what's going on with Don. I think he's got a message for us.
I'd be willing to bet if you took a survey, everybody's first rig was a handheld, and it makes perfect sense. It's small, it's easy to use, and they work. Well, today's lineup of handy talkies from leading makers like ICOM, Yaesu, and Kenwood are not your papa's handy talkies. They offer amateur radio operators at all levels incredible functionality, ease of use, and rugged durability in a small, lightweight package. You'll find a wide range of HTs at DX Engineering, from basic transceivers for newbies to advanced rigs. Here are just 3 of them that can take your mobile operations to the next level. From ICOM, the ID51A Plus 2 handheld transceiver. It's a dual-band HT, gives you global D-Star connectivity in a super compact body weighing about 9 ounces with a battery and an antenna. And while in terminal mode, you can connect to the internet through a PC or Android device and send your voice and data through the internet gateway to a destination repeater, or connect to the internet and use it as an access point radio to communicate with D-Star stations all across the globe. Other features include 1,300 memory channels, built-in GPS, the ability to listen to 2 bands at once or 2 frequencies in the same band, and a wide-range receiver that covers AM, FM, aircraft, and weather bands. If you like brand Y, the Yaesu FT2DR 2-meter 440 dual-band C4 FM digital HT is built for easy use and reliable performance. It gives you an oversized 1.7-inch backlit touch panel display that lets you easily navigate intuitive menus. The transceiver's rugged case makes it perfect for extreme environments and use in the field. A digital group monitor function automatically checks whether members registered in a group are within communications range. Other features include built-in GPS, high-speed data communications mode, 700 milliwatts of clear audio, 1200 BPS, 9600 BPS APRS function, a micro SD slot, and a high-capacity lithium-ion battery. And if your choice is Kenwood, the THD74A digital tri-band handheld transceiver is another great choice. This HT gives you 2-meter, 220, and 70-centimeter coverage with wideband and multi-mode reception. Gives you APRS packet transfer communications for exchange of real-time GPS positional information and messages. You can also take advantage of the unit's intuitive operation, rugged IP54-55 weatherproofing, DSP equalizer tailored to enhance the human voice range, extended receiver with HF, CWSSB, D-Star voice and data capabilities, and Bluetooth USB connectivity. It's all at DX Engineering, and you know DX Engineering ships faster than anybody else in the industry. Most orders placed by 10 p.m. Eastern are shipped the same day. With proven products and expert advice, DX Engineering helps you shrink the globe. Request your catalog or shop online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at dxengineering.com/hamnation.
Hey, Don, I absolutely agree. DX engineering really comes through when you need it at the last minute. Well, while they may not have 75 RPM records that Roger and Kimmers can transcribe via their great record players, DX engineering has the best when it comes to calling up and needing customer service. And that's what we're going to talk about next week when we talk about the Chinese handhelds and the USA type radios, Kenwood, Yaesu, Icom, Malenko, where DX engineering really gets behind them. Same with Wushan. Those folks are supported here in the USA. Well, let's take a look at Don and see what Don is doing at this time. So, would you know it? He is on a Grand Prix caravan with other sorts of vehicles. And there he is. Don, thank you for getting everything warmed up. Thanks for the idea about talking about Chinese handhelds. And we're going to be talking more about you. Well, we're talking about HF antennas. No, we're not going to talk necessarily about the big mamas. Those with a large coil will give an additional S unit, certainly, when needing to bust a pile up. But let's talk about antennas that are maybe a little bit smaller, slightly smaller than the wonderful Tar Heel antennas that we see here, sort of mounted on the rear maybe fiberglass, maybe plastic fender, but I imagine it gets out just great. And we're not going to talk tonight about what we see at Quartz Fest. That's coming up third week in January. Be there. We're going to be there. Quartz Fest, where they have motorized HF antennas that will go to the top of that ladder in an instant. And we're not talking about big sort of bug catcher types that you see in the center, as well as on the left side, the port side of that vehicle, which is a more modest antenna. To get started, many folks ask me, what's a great way to get started on HF with a simple antenna that doesn't require having a welding job done on the underside of the vehicle? And these are the common ham sticks, and they're sold by DX Engineering, MFJ, and all of the others. And what the ham stick is a center-loaded helical wound 1/4 wavelength whip, one antenna per whip. But at $20, it's not a big deal to have one antenna per whip per band. So they are single band HF antennas with a stainless steel top. Now, here's what you need to know. The 3H24 thread is what many mobile antennas come with. And that 3H24 thread is one that just screws into the correct mount, such as this mount right here. This one from Diamond, Comet also makes them, and there are others. But this mount is tuned to accept a 3H24. It's going to go on a trunk lid or a lip mount where 4 little Allen screws will go ahead and tighten everything up quite nicely. But when you order the mount, you got to tell them at DX Engineering or wherever you get your equipment what type of coax assembly and mount for the antenna you're looking for. The mount comes standard, but the goodies that you see there in silver and the white plastic insulation, you got to tell them what kind of an antenna you're going to use, because you'll just get the mount with nothing but a hole in it. You got to tell them. And at DX Engineering, they'll pry that information out from you. Here we have it mounted on Suze's car, and the coax that comes right out of the mount is very small, RG174, so that it can work nicely even if you've got to go into the trunk assembly. Each of the ham sticks need to be tuned. You can't just put on the stainless steel whip and expect that it's going to resonate. But boy, oh boy, especially on 40 and 75 meters, when you find resonance on an SWR analyzer, you're going to be very impressed. So this is a good one. And here it is standing tall, hopefully not arcing over to the tree if I'm running more than 100 watts. Usually 100 watts won't arc over. But this gives you a good idea as to get that antenna up over the ground plane, not down low. Here's an interesting arrangement That doesn't work. And what it is mounting the antennas. Let's take a look at the left one on a plate that is part of the roof rack. The capacity between the metal ground plane of the plate and the metal ground plane of the roof rack will cause the capacitive reactance to be not what the antenna is looking for. And you'll then need to do a tuner. And you'd like to have a ham whip or a ham stick without having to use a tuner. And, if you would, Victor, go back to that shot. I almost forgot to say, look at that right-hand mount. What the heck? They're missing the insulation. And on the right-hand mount, as soon as they screw anything into it and coax to the bottom side of the mount, it's shorted out to ground. Oh, my goodness. Glad we found that out. And here is the another one of the great antennas, motorized, mounted off the hatch of a relatively small vehicle. And another taking a 3/824 thread that screws right in and works quite nicely. Now, if you have a large vehicle such as the commercial vans and you're looking for a great way to mount, the stainless steel mounts can mount to the hinge mount. And the hinge mount that opens up the back door is grounded, so the door is grounded. And there you see our comm van where we've got it quite nicely mounted there for a nice setup. You can also get L brackets, but remember, on the L bracket, you got to have that little tiny white insulator, or else you're going to short the whole thing out. So don't lose that white insulator. On many maritime mobile installations, we've seen that the insulator got dropped overboard and the antenna shorted out as soon as they screwed it in. And there's no problem on a trunk lip mount of putting some nylon line to keep the antenna from overstressing the trunk lip on the newer vehicles that are not as thick as the older vehicles. Some antennas, such as this one from Diamond Antenna, come with a PL259 type of mount. So before you order your mount, be thinking about what antenna you're going to have with it, because as you see there, that's an SO239 receiver for that PL259 mount. Good news, here they have it on a roof rack. They have multiple grounding spots on the roof rack. So the roof rack did not suffer from capacitive reactance, and it worked out relatively well. And I'm happy to say the Diamond antennas, VHF, as well as the HF antennas, all have a lay-down feature that's quite nice when it's up nice and high. So before you get started on HF and you go out and you buy the Diamond or the Comet trunk clip mount, that's an investment. Yes, it is. Be sure and tell them, is it going to be a PL type of a receiver or a 3/824? Because most of them are on the right-hand side, but there's a bunch, including the Yaesu ATAS, that may be on the left side. So let them know ahead of time at DX Engineering what you're going to be mounting. Now, for us microwave and UHF folks, we mount into an in connector. But be careful. If you don't look carefully and you screw a PL259 into this in connector receiver, you're going to squash it flat. So be careful anytime you screw anything into an in connector receiver that indeed it's an in connector. Finally, on the internet, they talked all about that little loop. No, not my great black 76 station wagon that's running competition with Dawn this weekend, but the little teeny loop up at the inside of the larger loop. This is the magnetic loop antennas, and there was an internet very popular spot that said that if you squashed that inner loop to be more flat, it would lower the SWR. So we wanted to find out, and first of all, make sure that the smaller loop is absolutely in line with the larger loop. Until we did the alignment here, we didn't get great results, but we just turned it slightly, and bango, it came in just great. This is what we normally use on a inductive loop. And this has been quite effective, and this was on the chameleon loop, and it really worked out quite well. Jim Ford in 6JF, who lives across the street, was seen this past weekend testing to see whether or not flattening out the lower loop, and that's the smaller one on his home brew unit, it was on the bottom. And he used different setups. He had a nice rig from Down Under that he put together, and he tested it with that. He also had a distant field strength meter that he built up himself, and he tested with that. And he tested it also with a Kanga US power meter for looking at RF output in the field. And we have concluded that, yes, by squishing the lower arms of the smaller loop within the larger loop may bring down the SWR from 1.5 to maybe 1.4, or maybe even 1.3, or on 40 meters, we got it down from 1.2 all the way to 1.1. And we're happy to report that the field strength measurements, as well as one Skywave contacted, no, there was no difference at all. So before you squish your little tiny loop, as Don will tell you in his effigy that we took here at the Dayton Hamvention last year, and believe me, Albuquerque probably had him as well, because Albuquerque's a wonderful show. Don was saying that he wishes everybody a happy day. And so there you go. So I'm now going to turn it over to Unknown, but this is Gordo, WB6NOA, and Susie in 6GLF, and we wish you all a great week. And look at this. We actually have rain coming into Southern California. Maybe we'll get 1/10 of an inch. Back to the net.
Well, Gordo, I hope you survive the flooding there that's occurring. And if all goes well, we'll see you back here next week. If not, shoot up a flare or something.
Roger, George.
All right. Well, tonight I've got a friend of, he's actually a friend of most everyone here on the show. It's Charlie Wooten, NF4A. And Charlie, tell us, what do you do for a living? What's your position, and maybe how do we know each other?
Well, we both work together in broadcasting. I work for a company called iHeart Media, and we own a bunch of radio stations all over the country. And I'm what's called a market engineer. I have 6 radio stations here that I look after, 5 FM and 1 AM.
Well, so we kind of do the same thing. I do it for a different company here. I used to work at what's iHeart now a number of years ago. And it's, well, I don't know where they're going to get new guys from. There just aren't any new people coming into that. But y'all have a special division there, or a group of engineers at iHeart that perform special tasks when it becomes necessary. Tell us a little bit about that.
We have something called the Hurricane Response Team, and it's made up of engineers from all over the country, but mostly from the eastern part of the country where hurricanes happen. But we're also set up to do things in California for earthquakes or tornadoes or whatever. But we have what's called the Hurricane Response Team, and there's a picture of my work vehicle with my magnetic sign on there before I left to go up for Hurricane Florence. But we were tasked here very recently to go up to South Carolina to help out with the hurricane, to get our radio stations that weren't on the air, and to keep the radio stations that were on the air. And we had to do that by bringing some generators and diesel fuel. My vehicle, for instance, has a 85-gallon auxiliary tank on it that I could carry diesel fuel to take to generators. And we brought in generators. I think we had a couple of 80s and a 40 kW generator that we brought into transmitter sites to help get the station, keep the stations on the air. This picture right here, hold this one on for a second. This is very interesting. And George, me and you were talking about this yesterday. The little unit there near the bottom that's in white with the buttons on it called tie line. That's an audio codec. And this particular transmitter site, which was located near Charlotte, North Carolina, right across the South Carolina border. It was the station's licensed to North Myrtle Beach, but not Charlotte, but Shallotte. And this station, the way it received the audio to transmit it over the air at the transmitter site, came in on believe it or not, on a cable TV modem via IP, and then into this tie line codec, which turned it into analog audio, which was fed to the transmitter. Well, with the hurricane, we didn't have cable TV service or power for that matter at this site, so we had to bring in a generator, and we also brought in a little box that sits there in the top middle upper part of the picture. It's got 3 green lights on it and 2 little antennas sticking up. That's actually a 4G LTE radio modem, and it has an Ethernet jack on it. And so we simply configured that to look to the IP address of the sending end of this setup, and we were able to get audio to the transmitter this way. Just so happens that this transmitter site was also a Verizon cell site, and they had a generator. It was running. It was fed by fiber optics. So believe it or not, this cell site stayed up and never went down. And so we were able to use that to get the programming back on the air on that particular radio station very, very quickly once we arrived at the location there. That was kind of a weird situation at that particular location, George. One night, the first night we were there, we went in there a little bit too late, and the chief engineer, who was a local guy, he got a call on his cell phone, said, "Y'all need to leave. The road's fixing to flood. You're going to be in there, and you're not going to be able to get out." So we had to wait till till next morning. We came back, but it was an interesting trip to get out of that site at night. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and we actually had to go down a 4-lane highway the wrong way for about 5 miles with our flashers going. But luckily, there was no traffic, obviously, on the road. But we were able to get out because part of the highway on the southbound where we needed to be was flooded. It was under probably about 4 feet of water. But we were. Now, this is US 17 here. This is between Georgetown and Myrtle Beach. And it would be funny. We were based out of Charleston, and every day we'd drive from Charleston to Myrtle Beach to work. And some days when you went up in the morning, it would be flooded in one place. You come back in the afternoon, it would be flooded in another place. And it had to do also with the tides, but also just where the water was cresting. Actually the water just crested here in the last 4 or 5 days, I think. Over the weekend, I think some of those rivers up there, George, just finally crested. They really had a heck of a time with high water up there.
Wow. How many engineers do you have on that crew that showed up to help out?
On this particular event, we had 2 teams, and each team had about 4 engineers with it. I had with James Gay, who's was over the team. He's from Georgia, and then we had Chris Williams from Sarasota, and then Reb from Philadelphia, and we had a heck of a time. We are working on a blower on a transmitter. Believe it or not, we had to replace a blower, and here we're plumbing in the big transmitter back into the transmission line because we had the exciter, or 100-watt transmitter running in there for a short period of time, and these are all the vehicles there at the transmitter site. You saw that one truck there pulling a generator. This was after they got the power back on, and we were able to we were able to get everything back to normal at this particular site. We had other sites we had to go to with issues, and one site we had a bog in. One of the trucks carrying or pulling a generator got stuck, and so we had to pull him out. Ended up having to get a truck wrecker to get him pulled out. Just so much rain, and I think they had already had a lot of rain up there before then, and so the ground was saturated, and so it was interesting to say the least with the rain.
Yeah. Now, what are we looking at here? Apparently, y'all had to do some work. Yeah,
this is a local engineer from Myrtle Beach, and he's just doing some tuning on a BE5 KW transmitter that we just got back up on the air. We did some maintenance on it, a little bit of maintenance. Like I said, we changed the blower and cleaned some things up in it, and he's just getting it tuned back up to full power. This was after the power came back on. We were able to, it was really funny. We never expected the cable TV modem to come back to life while we were there. We figured that, okay, they'll get the power back on, but cable TV will not come back on. But the minute the commercial power came back on, the cable TV modem came to life, and we were able to get that site back up on commercial power. This is at another site, and here we're having to use a 700-watt solid state PA, and we're plumbing it in, taking it off the big transmitter there, and putting the smaller transmitter to get on the air until we can troubleshoot the BEFM20 that's there. Had a problem with it. Every time you turn the filaments on, you get a grid overload. We ended up finding a piece of trash or a piece of metal actually in the tube socket that somehow just decided to show up there at the wrong time. But we were able to get the station back on the air again. George, you'd be surprised. Of course, it's flat land up there. You put 500 watts into an 8-bay antenna up 800 or 900 feet, you'd be surprised how far that goes. I was amazed how far the stations actually were able to get out, even without running full power.
Oh, I absolutely agree. It's height is everything. I've got 3 translators here combined to a single antenna. They're only 250 watts each, but the antenna's at 900 feet. So yeah, it's got pretty good coverage for something that low power. So overall, I guess electricity was the biggest problem you had during this event?
Yeah, it was probably 80% of it. We had a couple of situations where some of the transmitters didn't want to come back on after being down. These particular stations in Myrtle Beach and in Florence, where the other team was working, we had just bought those stations, and they had not been brought up to our standards, I guess you'd say. There were no generators permanently installed at the sites, and so, like I said, we had to bring in generators for those sites. Normally, any of the iHeart stations that are on the coast would have generators for power failure to take care of a power failure for hurricanes and that type of thing.
So this wasn't your first rodeo either. You've been through a number of hurricanes. I know. Getting radio stations back on the air. How many do you recall right off? I'm talking about not just where it rained, but you really had some issues.
Oh yeah, I spent 3 weeks just south of you in Biloxi. Right after Katrina, I came in the day after. I came into Biloxi the day after Katrina, and I literally followed a bulldozer down past. You probably know where Pass Road is in Biloxi, I'm sure. Yeah. I literally followed a bulldozer down Pass Road to get to the radio station, and it didn't matter what it was. It was if it was a car, a truck, or whatever. The bulldozer was making a road, and I followed him in there all the way to the radio station. Go ahead. I
was going to say, I bet that probably has to have been probably one of the worst events that you had to help recover some stations from.
It was. Hurricane Charlie was another one. It was down in. It was the one that it just all of a sudden turned into toward the Fort Myers, Port Charlotte area. I think it was the same year or the year before. I can't remember. That was the year we had 4 or 5 bad storms, and it took the roof off of the radio station there. And of course, we had Viz Queen and all kinds of stuff over the top, and the equipment was still operating. It was amazing. We kept didn't have any air conditioning, and we didn't have any roof, but we stayed on the air, and that was interesting. And of course, we had Ivan come into Pensacola, and that was another interesting one. I've had probably a half a dozen that I've had to deal with, along with other. We have a whole team of people that, like I said, that deal with this. It's not just me. There's a team of anywhere from 4 to 6 people that are assigned to a market when there's a problem like this.
Wow. Charlie, is there a danger of all that wet water and the aluminum ladder and hooking things up? I imagine you guys have to wear like rubber boots and rubber everything to stay insulated, huh?
Well, really, Gordon, we're just hooking up coax to a transmitter, and as long as everything is at ground potential, which as George can tell you, everything in a radio broadcast transmitter is grounded coming into the building, and it's grounded once it comes into the building, and all of the equipment is grounded. We have to be careful. There's no question about that. But we were basically running 1/2 inch and 7/8 inch heliax jumpers over to big adapters going to, the big 3-inch heliax and 3-inch EIA flange connectors. So we had special adapters to reduce it down to type in. And like you were saying a while ago on your segment, you have to be careful when you're screwing in those type in connectors.
Yeah. Well, Charlie, we appreciate you dropping in tonight, and that finally maybe things have settled down up there a little bit, and we'll have you back on here again sometime, because our audience here likes to hear some of these broadcast horror stories, and I know you've got a good many that you could tell over the years. So thanks for being here, man, and hey, I guess maybe we'll see you next time, and probably in Dayton.
Yeah, I always go to Dayton, always go to Huntsville, so we'll see each other there. I love going to Dayton just because I'm a contester and a DXer, and that's our place where we have all of our activities for contesters and DXers.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for being here, and enjoyed it, and glad you guys had a team in place there and a plan already set up to take care of disasters like this, because most of us don't, We'll just be flying by the seat of our pants if we get an event like that. So anyway, Charlie, 7-3, take care.
Thank you, George. 73, Gordon.
73, Charlie. Great report, George.
Well, that is interesting. I contacted Charlie, I guess before the hurricane really made landfall. He was about to head up that direction, and we were going to try to line up something, but it did take several weeks before, everything worked out to where we could get him here on a Wednesday night and get him on the show. So, great to catch up with him there and find out what went on there for recovery from Hurricane Florence. Well, last week I had asked a question because we had a video by Randy, and he's got his test equipment fetish happening, which a lot of us do. And so I asked the question, if you could only have one piece of test equipment, what would it be? And got a lot of answers there. I was thinking most everyone would say a voltometer, a multimeter, a Simpson 260. Well, I was wrong, Gordo. A lot of people did say that. But some of them said an oscilloscope. I had a IFR service monitor, antenna analyzer, test light, SWR meter, spectrum analyzer. Well, if it was me, I mean, I'm thinking I want a voltometer, but I guess different people want different things. And I drew a random name, of course, because there was no right answer to this. And it was Rick, N1TEK, said that he wanted an oscilloscope. And I guess it really all depends on what you're going to do and whether or not you got electricity when you need to use that piece of test equipment. So thanks, Rick, and congratulations. Gary Drash, K9DJT, will be in touch with you, and he's going to send you a copy of his book, Ham Radio is Alive and Well. Great tale of his ham radio history, being a ham decades ago, and then getting out of the hobby due to, just life happening, family, school, career, one thing or another. And he gets back in and he finds out what's going on with ham radio today and brings us up to date on that. For next week, though, I've got another question here. We're going to take this out of Gordo's Extra Class Amateur Radio Study Guide. And Gordo had flagged some questions for me in here. This is the last one he flagged in the extra book, so we'll have to pick out a few more for the future there. But this one kind of stumped me because I didn't recognize the letters at first. But the question is, what does SAR measure? Is it synthetic aperture ratio of the human body? Is it signal amplification rating? Is it the rate of which RF energy is absorbed in the body? Or is it the rate of RF energy reflected from stationary terrain? What does SAR measure? If you think you know the answer to that, send it to me, hamnationcontest@gmail.com, and you could win one of Gordo's books here, either the general class or the extra class. I believe that's what we got right now to give away, isn't it, Gordo?
It is, and we'll send it out right away. SAR, not search and rescue, but something else.
Something else. And after I read your answer, because I did read your answer, I recognized it because I had to do studies on this years ago when the FCC changed some rules. And anyway, something you want to know about, and maybe not as bad for us on ham radio as some higher power users, but definitely something to keep an eye on. Well, with that, I guess we need to go get a message from Don and then catch up on what's going on in the ham radio news world.
This episode of Ham Nation is brought to you by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a minute. First thing you're going to need is room to put up an antenna, right? So you're going to need a house. And with that house, you're going to need a lot. And that's why you need Rocket Mortgage, because, well, you got to put up an antenna. And because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It quite frankly cause you a lot of anxiety. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process, and it's pretty simple. Step 1, answer a few simple questions, and then they check your credit for pre-qualified approval. Step 2, Quicken Loans will verify your income, your assets, and your credit in less than 24 hours and give you a verified approval, which then gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Step 3, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First thing they'll do is lock up your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. And the best part is, if the rates go up, your rates stay the same. But if the rates go down, your rates go down. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you would expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, it's really simple. Go to rocketmortgage.com/hamnation. Rate Shield approval is only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030. That's rocketmortgage.com/hamnation. And we thank Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans for their support of Ham Nation. From Amateur Radio Newsline Report number 2135, these are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, October 3rd, 2018. As 100 mountain bike riders from all over the country took on the foothills of the Rocky Mountains just outside Canyon City, Colorado, Ham Radio Public Service volunteers were ready to assist.
As they commenced on the scenic Royal Gorge Bridge to race the Royal 50 on Saturday, September 22nd, they knew they had to be on their toes. With cactus in every corner, rattlesnakes, treacherous downhill areas, overall rough trails, and significantly higher than normal temps, they had to be ready for anything to happen. Fortunately, they were not the only ones who were prepared. To ensure everyone's safety, it took 16 members of Colorado Aries, interoperability with the Aries ComVan, some operators hiking or biking into their positions, and the use of ATVs to cover the event. Thankfully, AMR was also on site to assist with the two medical situations they had. One rider had a close encounter with a cactus bush, and another crashed at the end of a downhill lane.
And K0WJH. Go ahead, Bill. AMR Mule leaving this location at this time. Copy. En route to Lima. That's affirmative. En route to Lima. Copy. 1142 W2MC.
Overall, the event was a huge success, and Colorado Aries is planning to support the Royal 50 again next year with even more riders participating. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Andy Morrison, K9AWM.
Newsline and Ham Nation's own Amanda Alden, K1DDN, was one of the event coordinators. While the FCC reviews ways to restrict frequency coverage of Chinese HTs coming into the U.S., there are other parts of the world where these cheap units' wideband capabilities are saving lives.
One global news item in the last few days is the rescue of Indonesian Aldi Novel Adilang, who told reporters that his handheld transceiver was key to his rescue on the high seas. Adilang was adrift for 49 days in the Pacific after the unpowered Rompong fishing platform he was working on lost its anchor line. It broke loose from 77 miles off the Sulawesi island coast during high winds on the 14th of July. After a week, Adilang ran out of food, but managed to live on fish he caught, and when it didn't rain, he drank drips of seawater that he wrung from his clothing. Using his generator-driven light and a makeshift white flag, he had tried to attract the attention of many passing ships, but either they didn't see him or they ignored him. When the huge bulk carrier MV Arpeggio passed within a mile of him on August 31st, he tried to attract them, but the ship just kept going. It was only when he remembered the HT on his boat and tuned it to a marine VHF channel frequency that a friend had told him to use if he got into trouble that he got the ship's attention by calling help in English. The ship reversed its course and rescued Adilang. For Amateur Radio Newsline, this is Ed, DD5LP.
If you're a satellite enthusiast and have a talent for editing news copy, AMSAT North America wants to hear from you.
Something new happens every week in the world of amateur radio, and that includes satellite amateur radio. AMSAT News Service is hoping to find qualified volunteers who can serve as editors on a rotating basis for its weekly newsletter. The News Service bulletins are free weekly reports provided by AMSAT North America. The hams who serve as its editors should be knowledgeable about satellite operation and AMSAT North American members. Experience in editing is a big plus, but not required. Editors can expect to devote between 4 and 5 hours of work for each newsletter. If you're interested, submit your information to ans-editor@amsat.org. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jack Parker, W8ISH.
And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news for 4 decades and counting at arnewsline.org. With Andy Morrison, K9AWM, Ed Durant, DD5LP, Jack Parker, W8ISH, Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team across the globe. I'm Don Wilbanks, AE5DW. 7-3. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation. Now here's the solar update with Dr. Tamitha Scove.
We have 2 coronal holes that are rotating into the Earth's strike zone, but which one will bring the big solar storm? Those stories and more in the news this week. Space weather this week is really beginning to pick up. We have multiple coronal holes on the Earth-facing disk. As a matter of fact, the first of 3 coronal holes has already rotated through the Earth's strike zone, and it's bumped us up sporadically to active conditions over the last couple days. Now, the next coronal hole, that is rotating into the Earth's strike zone now, and it could also bump us back up to active conditions by about the 5th. But the real story is this monster coronal hole that is going to be rotating into the Earth strike zone here and be sending us some fast wind by about the 7th. And how do we know this? Well, this isn't our first dance with this region. This region actually hit us last month and brought us to a G2 level solar storm. And as we look at this thing after it survived its backside passage, we see the difference between last month and this month. It's actually a little bit bigger, a little bit wider, and a little bit deeper. So what that means is that it could actually have even more potential to bump us up to G2 storm levels. So your aurora photographers, definitely get your batteries charged, because we could be seeing storm conditions by the afternoon of October 7th. Now, that's not the only story. We also have region 2723 that has emerged on the Earth-facing disk, but unfortunately, it's just not that strong of a region. So amateur and shortwave radio and emergency responders, well, we're still dealing with low solar flux, so radio propagation on Earth's day side is still pretty poor, and that's the way it's going to be probably for the next week. Switching to your solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are in the middle of getting hit by some fast wind from 2 coronal holes that are rotating through the Earth strike zone. Now, the first of those is hitting now, and NOAA is expecting active conditions at high latitudes with about a 30% chance of a major storm. At mid-latitudes, we're expecting unsettled conditions with really only about a 20% chance of active conditions. But the real news comes with the big coronal hole and the monster fast wind that's going to come from that baby, and that's going to happen on the 7th. At high latitudes, NOAA is expecting major storm conditions with probably a 85% chance of a major storm. At mid-latitudes, we're expecting at least minor storm conditions with probably a 75% chance of a major storm. So your aurora photographers, even at mid-latitudes, get your extra battery packs and get some fans to blow all the clouds away so you can get those gorgeous aurora shots. And now amateur radio and shortwave radio, all you radio responders, well, you're just going to have to kind of deal with this storm until it blows over, probably around the 10th or even the 11th, because this could linger because we're so close to the fall equinox that it causes these effects to be amplified quite a bit. Now, GPS operators, now you guys also need to be careful. Please stay clear of the aurora and the dawn dust terminators until after this storm blows through. Switching to your solar flare and particle radiation storm outlook over the coming week, everything is still in the green when it comes to solar flares. We do have region 2723 on the Earth-facing disk right now, but it's just not that bright and not that active to cause any radio blackouts or any worry in that regard. It does mean that the solar flux is still in the 60s, which is extremely low. This makes GPS users, especially at low latitudes, very happy, but it's not great news for you radio operators who need that boost in solar flux for radio propagation. And you guys are just going to have to deal with this for easily the next 7 to 10 days until a new region rotates into Earth view from the sun's backside. Now, on top of that, we do have, because it's solar minimum, we do have a higher penetration of cosmic rays than we normally would. So this means you frequent flyers, and that includes air crew who fly more than 800 hours annually and fly at high latitudes and high altitudes. You are now in the marginal range for radiation dose, and this does include the prenatal passengers now. So please take this into consideration in your flight plans. So the space weather this week is getting very exciting. We've had 3 coronal holes that have been rotating across the Earth-facing sun, the first of which has already given us active conditions sporadically. The second one could bump us to active conditions again here anytime soon. And the third one should be sending us some decent fast winds starting around the afternoon of the 7th that could bump us up to G2 storm levels if it does the same dance that we did with it last month. So your aurora photographers, you should be dancing too, even at mid-latitudes, because you could get some gorgeous aurora shots if this thing is anything like it was last time. Now, amateur radio and shortwave radio responders, well, I know things aren't looking too good for you right now, and you're just going to have to kind of get through it. And even after the storm peaks, well, it's going to take a little time for it to settle down because we're dealing with the fall equinox effects. That means that these solar storms have a tendency to linger. So it's going to be noisy, especially on Earth's night side. And it's going to be probably another week or so before you get a reprieve with a new region rotating into Earth view that could potentially bump up the solar flux. Now, you GPS operators, well, this big storm that's coming, it's probably going to be pretty big and it's going to affect you too. So likely GPS will have some issues, but if you do yourself a favor and stay clear of Aurora and stay clear of the dawn dust terminators, you're probably going to get better reception than otherwise. I'm Tamitha Scove. Thank you for watching.
Heard it, worked it, logged it. It's time to get the transceiver that's best suited for your lifestyle. ICOM offers a variety of high-performance and innovative products. See how you can make the most out of contest season with these transceivers. The competitive edge you've been looking for, raise the bar and hear what others cannot with this flagship HF 50 MHz transceiver, the IC7851. Reciprocal mixing dynamic range, crystal clear local oscillator design, spectrum scope, dual receivers, and digital voice recorder. The IC7610 is the SDR every ham wants and just in time for contesting season. This high-performance SDR has the ability to pick out the faintest signals even in the presence of stronger adjacent signals. The new ICOM IC7610 is a direct sampling software-defined radio that will change the world's definition of a SDR transceiver. RF direct sampling, 110 RMDR, independent dual receiver, dual digicell. IC7300 is changing the way entry-level HF is designed. This high-performance innovative HF transceiver with a compact design will far exceed your expectations. RF direct sampling, 15 discrete bandpass filters, large 4.3-inch color touchscreen, real-time spectrum scope, and SD memory card slot. Visit icomamerica.com/amateur for more information on all the great ICOM radios. And you can tune in and enter to win after each episode of Ham Nation. Go to icomamerica.com/hamnation and sign up to win some great swag prizes, T-shirts, hats, and while you're there, learn how you can win the monthly grand prize drawing for a new radio. We've got a winner for September. Stephen T. K5PK won an IC5100A Deluxe. Congratulations, Stephen. I know you're really going to enjoy that radio. And we've got another radio for October here. It's going to be the ICOM IC2730A dual band, dual watch analog transceiver, 50 watts on both VHF and UHF, large high contrast LCD display, built-in weather alert function. It's very easy to operate, and there's an optional Bluetooth board available for it. So go to icomamerica.com/hamnation after this in each episode of Ham Nation and register to win. Sign up, good luck, and don't forget to follow ICOM America Inc. on Facebook and Twitter. And one more radio that's going to be given away in October is this one right here in front of me, the IC7300, ICOM's first software-defined radio, and it has been a great one. Everybody's really enjoying this one. It's at an entry-level price, just a fantastic performer for a radio in this price range. It's color touchscreen display. It is software-defined radio, like I mentioned, and a lot of great features on it. A lot more, really, than you would expect in an entry-level radio. To go along with that, though, we're celebrating Amateur Logic's 13th anniversary. That's coming up in the October 15th episode. We're also giving away a Heil ICM microphone and one of the new Heil BM17 emergency communicator headsets. A great set of headphones here, very lightweight, comfortable, easy to wear for a long period of time. Now, these don't have the blocking capability of the larger headset, but for something like MCOMs where you're not having a lot of other operators sitting immediately beside you, these things are really great. Also, we're going to have a power supply to run that radio, so I've got an MFJ. This is MFJ 4230 DMP. It's a 12-volt, 30-amp switching supply from MFJ, very lightweight and compact. As a matter of fact, this one is actually mine right here, and I use it for field day or anytime I need a good little 12-volt power supply to run a radio with. We're going to need an antenna with that as well, so I've got an MFJ big ear back here, It's got the loading coil here at the bottom, an L bracket for mounting to a pipe or similar, and a 17-foot telescopic stainless steel whip. For a portable antenna, wow, you can deploy that thing super fast, and it really works good. Of course, some coax, you'll need that. So I've got 50 feet here of MFJ RG8X, American-made coax. And I've got one of Gordo's books here. The winner can take their choice of either extra class or the general class amateur radio study guide, because you might need to upgrade your license to get all the use you want out of that rig right there. And just to top it off, a pair of Amateur Logic's signature faux gold PL259 connectors here, strictly for decorative purposes. I would not use these for RF. I'm not sure I would get solder near them. If you'd like to win that package there, we'll be giving it away here within the next couple of weeks. You've only got to October the 11th to register if you have not already. Go to amateurlogic.tv/contest. You'll get all the details there on how to register, as well as the official contest rules. And now Amanda is standing by in the chat room, and I know she has probably got some questions in there for us tonight. Hi, Amanda.
Well, hello. I do absolutely have some questions. First of all, I'm wearing pink tonight. My favorite DX Engineering shirt. Thank you, DX Engineering. And of course, we just want to bring about breast cancer awareness, and I love representing that. And it's unfortunate that we have to make an awareness of that. Cancer sucks. So anyhow, support when you can. If your grocery store is asking you to round up your next dollar to donate, feel free to do so. All right. Let's see. I have this first question is for Gordo. Gordo WB6JOE asks if you're going to play HF Zombie Walk at Pacificon this year on Saturday night.
Yes, I will be at Pacificon that coming Saturday night, and we should have some great demos in the booth. Bob and I will be manning one of the booths. Looking forward to seeing everybody at Pacificon, and we saw quick pics of you in the comm van doing your thing this past weekend. Congratulations on a great job of showing what ham radio can do when there's no cells around.
That's right. And it's a quick moving event. And it was the first time we did it. And it was stressful to coordinate everybody. But we did it. And it was great. It was awesome. I couldn't have asked for a better day. It was a long day and very hot. But hey, it worked out. All right, Charlie, thanks for sticking around tonight. I know you kind of talked a little bit about how natural disasters are kind of a challenging part of your job. First of all, tell me, how long have you been doing this as an engineer? And second, is this the absolute most challenging part, or do you find your crews being stuck overnight trying to get a transmitter up and running? Tell us about it a little bit, other aspects.
Well, I've been doing broadcast engineering since 1969. And I've told a couple of people this in a sick kind of way. I really enjoyed the challenges of a hurricane, and being part of a team to get things going after it's been destroyed or damaged or whatever. And I've been working for iHeart Clear Channel, as it was before then, since 1997. And before then, I worked for myself as an independent contractor. But I was doing hurricane work before that. In 1995, we had, for instance, had one hit here in Panama City, and I took down a tower that had 4 FMs on it. And so I had my hands full there for several days getting those 4 FMs back on the air on a temporary tower with temporary equipment.
Well, absolutely. We understand. And I think that brings out the best of all of us when we have a disaster that we have to step up to help with. And I think hams believe that fully, by the way. That's when they can come out. Hopefully they're prepared and they've already practiced and trained for this and they're ready. That's the biggest part, is that you go there with your gear, you know what's going to be the problem. I'm guessing you guys prepare the same way. Yeah, hurricane, you get a week in advance notice, so you're already doing that.
Yeah, we were staged 2 days ahead of time in Charleston, ready to go in. So we actually were proactive and go in, get ready to go in to the affected area ahead of time. So we were already moved. I had to drive practically a full day to come from Panama City, Florida, where I live, to Charleston. And that's where we worked. Like I said, each day we worked out of Charleston. We stayed at a hotel in Charleston and then traveled back and forth to the Myrtle Beach area every day.
Very good. And my only other comment is that there's a lot of responders that get a big gratitude, such as American Red Cross, FEMA, even the linemen out there getting power back up and running. And I'm guessing you guys don't get so much gratitude. So I think from all of us in the ham community, we would like to say thank you for working so hard and leaving your families and staying out there for a week at a time and getting stuff up and running. So thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you, Amanda.
All right. Gordo, I have one more question real quick. Ed, WB5ORT wanted to know if the adapters for the NMO mounts work well or not. He's in the belief that if he installs the NMOs, he can adapt SO239 or 3/8 224.
Hope I said that right. Adapters work well as long as the antenna is like a VHF antenna. But I'm afraid that any adapter for an HF antenna may ultimately break loose unless they have, as we saw in the earlier photos, a line that is attaching the antenna to the car from flexing back to forth. So we have to be cautious that any adapters create a weak, make that a weak link, there we go, in the setup. So I try and not do adapters, but rather get the right coax cable kit that goes with the mount.
Well, very good. All right, all I need to do is do some net announcements here. Thank you so much, Gordo. Thanks, Charlie, for being on tonight. George, thank you. The nets are bad tonight. First of all, we have our 40-meter net control, KC7FPF. He's under the weather, so sorry. Kevin, I hope you feel better. Look at 80 meters, but Steve, W7UDI, also said that was kind of looking shoddy. So check on 3908 for our HF nets. Don't forget our digital nets. We have D-Star on 14 Charlie, Echolink on Dewdrop In, and TAC 311 for DMR. That might be your only luck tonight to get into a net. So apologize about that. Join us again next week. Oh, and by the way, a huge happy birthday to Bob Heil. We love you, Bob. And his birthday is on October 5th. So sorry you couldn't stay till the end of the show. That's all I got. Who's wrapping it up?
I guess I'll wrap it up tonight. Before we go, though, let's make one more round around the horn here real quick. Gordo, any final words of wisdom before the floods wash you away there?
No, we're okay. We've had our 1/100th of an inch of rain, and that's it. So we're wet in Southern California, and we'll see everybody next week. And Bob, if I could play better on the piano, I would play you happy birthday. Happy birthday, Bob. Thanks all of everyone for watching and listening. Ham Nation.
All right. Thanks, Gordo. And Charlie, have you got any final tips or any departing wisdom you'd like to leave with the hams here? I know you're a big contester.
Well, this past weekend was the CQ Worldwide RTTY contest. I piddled around in it a little bit, made 400 contacts, and just to make sure that I wrung out all the spider webs out of my antenna to get ready for the CQ Worldwide CW and sideband contest coming on later on this. We're just entering the contest season right now, so that's what I'm getting ready for here. And happy birthday to Bob.
Yeah, well, I hope the solar weather will improve a little bit there, so maybe we get a little more propagation coming our way. Amanda, anything final from you?
Not a thing, except for that Colorado is actually going to be getting hit with winter here real soon. It's been wonderful, but winter's coming. We're preparing.
Well, we're nowhere near it down here. It's been in the 90s for the last 2 weeks, and it's not supposed to be, but it is. Well, thanks for being here tonight, everyone. It was great to see Bob back with us. We'll all be back next week at the same time with another show. So come back, join us then, and special thanks to Charlie Wooten NF4A for being with us tonight, and bring us a little update on what goes on in broadcasting after a big event like, a hurricane. So 7-3, everyone. Join us again next week. We'll see you then.
Thanks, Charlie.